All right, so let's make a new patcher. We're going to do something from scratch today. Well, let's start with a jit.world and a toggle. Okay, and let me make my patcher a little bit smaller. Give yourself enough room that your window, you can put your window over here and see them both. Okay. So again, when you toggle this, you get this 50% gray backdrop in here. You can change that with an @erase color message. I'm going to leave it for now, and I'm going to show you the reason I think they have a 50% gray there as the default color, and I think it has to do with compositing and video mixing. All right, so now if we want to display video in this, we can easily just grab video from anywhere, from our from Finder or from your video library here, and drag it in there. Why don't you go ahead and grab the dishes one, and also grab the dozer one. Dishes and dozer. All right, so there's a built-in video playing, like I said before, in JIT world. So if I just patch one of these in here and hit play, I get full screen video. Easy peasy. No problem there. But if I want to have a mix between these two, I can't just patch them both into here. It's going to be whichever one I put in last, or whenever I send a new video stream, it will replace that. It can only display one item on a video plane at a time. But you can have as many video planes in your jit.world as you want. There's only the one built-in one, and usually I only use that if that's the only video I'm going to use, because I don't want that JIT world video plane to be interfering with ones that I'm adding. So let's respawn this jit.world by deleting it and restarting it, or adding a character in there. So that clears out that video plane, puts it back to black, which means that it's off, right? Even though this has an X in it, we have to send that again. Now it's back on and it's gray. Okay. So we can have our own video plane, jit.gl.video plane. And we can have two of these. And we can hit play on these, and go ahead and just click on the, there's a little loop icon next to that, and you can click on that and restart the video, and so then it should loop. And actually we should just go ahead and add in the objects to make this loop and play by itself when you first load the patch. So let's add a load bang object, which gives you a bang when you first open the patch, and we're going to send that to the message loop 1, so that will automatically set those as loop 1, which will enable their loops. And then we just need to send it also a 1. But we need to make sure that we have the right order of operations between these two. Because I need to make sure that I set loop 1 before I trigger the video. So I just need to do a trigger bang bang up here before the load bang, after the load bang, trigger bang bang, TBB. And this, I believe, will be the one furthest to the right is the first one that it outputs, so we can send that to the loop 1 first, and then the second thing that we do is send that to the number 1, so that these all play at when they're supposed to, when you first start the patch, these will play and they'll loop. All right, so now you notice I'm playing both of them. I have two video planes, but I only see the dozer. Or maybe I only see the dishes. Watch what happens if I now, on this other plane that I'm not seeing, I respawn this video plane. Now I'm seeing that one and not the dozer. That's because these are occupying the same space. These are both a two-dimensional object that's sitting at 0, 0, 0 at the origin, right? So they're both inhabiting the same place. And so which one is on top? It's a crapshoot, meaning we don't know which one is on. It's undefined. Generally, it means the one that's on top is the last one that you spawned. So I just respawned this, so it's on top. Now if I respawn this, right, putting a character in, taking it out, now that's on top, right? The way it's normally done, layering, is by its Z position. So if I say at position 0, 0, 0.1, and on this one I say at position 0, whoops, not O, 0, 0, 0.2, that should be in front because it's closer to the camera. This one's at 0.1. Let's change this to 0.3, and it should be in front of the camera. Okay? So that's the way it's normally done. But that would be really annoying if you had to do all your video planes and say, oh, like, this one's at 0.001, this one's at 0.002. And then, like, if I needed them to switch orders, I'd have to, like, move it backwards and send position messages. It would drive me crazy anyway. So normally when we're working with two-dimensional video planes, we don't want to use the Z scale. This is a two-dimensional video. If we're rendering it full screen, we usually want to completely ignore the Z scale. We may want to render it smaller than full screen and have that video plane be a 3D object, in which case we might use the Z scale, but that's not what we're doing in this case. We're mixing two full screen videos, right? So we're going to not use position. We're going to not use the depth of the Z scale to determine the layering order. Instead, we're going to say at depth, enable 0 to disable depth on that video plane, and do it on both of them. At depth, enable 0. Okay? Now, again, we're still in a crapshoot because we're still at the same location. And so we don't know which one is on top. And so now we can specify a layer order. It will ignore this layer if you don't have a depth enable 0. It will try to go based on the Z depth. At layer, and you can specify a layer. Let's say this one is the dozer is layer 2. And now back over here, I could say this is at layer 3 if I wanted to, or I could say layer 1. Let's start with layer 3. That should put it on top. Any higher layer should obscure a lower layer. Okay, so layer 1 is the bottom. Well, layer 0 is the bottom, but layer 3 will be on top of layer 1. Okay? So that's cool. We can change the layer of things to change which one we're seeing. Let's go ahead and make this layer variable. We can have a message that says layer $1. Remember, we're using wildcards, and pass that into there and just duplicate that message and patch it into the other video plane. And then we'll need like an integer box, number box, and patch that in. And now we can change this layer and say, okay, I want this to be layer 5, and I want this to be layer 6. Okay, that's cool. We can switch from one video to another this way. So you could change the layers and use that as a way of cutting between two different video feeds. Like I could do like this. If we wanted to do a simple cut between these two, I could have a toggle here and say layer, actually, duplicate this message here, layer $1. And I could patch that into that and then take the opposite value here, which all you have to do is use one of those is it exclamation point minus? Yeah, exclamation point -1. Whoops, sorry, exclamation point -1. What that does is it's subtract with inlets reversed, meaning it said whatever I send in here, it takes 1 minus whatever I send in there, right? So if I send a 1 in there, it will be 1 minus 1 and 0. If I send a 0 in there, it'll be what, -1? No, it'll be 0. Yeah. Okay, so that gives you the opposite value, right? When this is 1, the other one's 0. We'll use this exclamation point minus again here for mixing in a second, but for right now we're going to use it for layering. So now I can patch this into the layer of each. My patch cords are getting away from me here. All right, sorry. This one, I did it in. We don't need extra messages. Let's just patch this into what we already have. Patch that over there. Okay. Now I can, this is channel A, channel B, channel A, channel B, or other way around. So now by swapping the layers, we have an easy way of cutting between two different channels. Cool? Okay, so what if you want to mix? Well, let me show you the old way first. Old way uses an object called Jit.xfade. Crossfade between two matrices. And if you open up the help file in this, you have to send it a message that says xfade followed by a float, and that changes the amount of the first matrix and the second matrix, and it does a simple crossfade. So you can say message xfade $1. We can take let's use a slider. Shortcut for slider is S. Makes a slider object. This slider object gives me, I think by default, gives me a value between 0 and 255, or maybe 0 and 127. 0 and 127 because that's the range that MIDI notes use. And originally everything in Max was based for MIDI. What?
How do you make it rotate on its?
Okay, so this, it'll automatically detect based on the aspect ratio.
Oh, I see.
So if I make it wider than tall, it'll make it horizontal. If I make it taller than wide, it'll make it vertical. So we can, but you can change the properties of this by going and opening your inspector. And you can make this a float here. And you can change the range from 128 to just 1 with a period after it. And that'll give you a number between 0 and 1. 0 to 1, right? So now I can patch this into this xfade message, patch that into the jit.xfade. And now it knows what it needs to do, but I need to patch in the video, not into the video plane, from the video coming out of the playlist object. And then we could patch this into another video plane, say. But for now, actually, let's just use a jit.p window, which is a patcher window, which is a way of showing matrix-based video right in your patcher. Okay, so you can use this to crossfade between two things, right? And I could send this to a single video plane. So I could have, right now I have these two video planes here with layers. I wouldn't necessarily need those. I could, if I was using this object, I could just have one video plane and pass the video coming out of this to that video plane. I could patch it right into the jit.world video plane that's built in here, and that's fine. Question.
I just missed how you got the video.
This is a jit.p window.
Oh,
Jit.p window. Yeah. It's a way of putting a window in your patcher. I don't use them a lot because they don't, I mean, it's a way of putting video for your user interface if you want little video graphics or something to be in your UI, or you just want, you're testing and you want to really quickly see a video stream. That's when I'll use it. It uses a lot of resources, and if you had a bunch of P windows in your patcher, it's going to run slower and it'll reduce your frame rate. So try to avoid using it where you don't need it. Yes?
my video plane is stuck on dishes, and when I trigger
The P window here?
it,
Uh-huh. And when you move this, it jumps straight to dozer and doesn't crossfade.
it doesn't, well,
Okay, what you probably have happen is that your slider is outputting integers from 0 to 128 or floats from 0 to 128. And as soon as you get 1, it hops to the opposite side, right? Because it wants a value range of 0 to 1. So what numbers are coming out of your slider if it's not working? Attach a message right here and just move the slider and see what numbers are popping out. See how mine goes from 0 to 1? What's yours going between? All right, let me hop over real quick. All right, so what's wrong? Yeah, that you have attached the wrong inlet. Right in the display the message. Nope. Out of the slider into there. Now, what do you got? Now move your slider. There. So you have that not set up right. That needs to be a float value and have a range of 0 to 1. So go into the inspector for that. No problem. So in the inspector, Charlotte, there's a thing called float. There's a checkbox for float output. Yep, float output. And then the range, change that to 1. Double click on it. There you go, 1. Now it should work. Yeah, so if your range was wrong, then it will probably, as soon as Xfade gets a value of 1, it will be full right. If it gets a value of 2, it'll still be full right. If it gets a value of 1,000, it'll still be full right. So if it's just hopping over to the second input, then you probably have a range problem with your slider. Okay? Cool. So that's the old way of doing things. The reason why this is not good is because you don't have as much flexibility as you have with video planes. There's lots of different things I can do with video planes. I can colorize them. I can move them around. I can change their layer ordering. I can change how it's compositing. This is only doing an additive blend. Additive. I believe it's additive, where one color is adding on top of the other, but while you're changing it, which is slightly different than a alpha blend, which is what we'll be looking at in a minute. Also, there are other blending modes you can do in OpenGL that this doesn't do, like multiply and subtract and greater than, and lots of other different operators that you can add to a video signal that this doesn't handle. Also, because this is done in what's called matrix-based video, and no, I didn't have you guys do that tutorial. Matrix-based video is instead of the video being saved as a texture, which is done on your graphics card, the video is saved as a stream of numbers that represents every pixel in that image, which is a lot longer and a lot slower for your computer to have to deal with. Also, your computer has to do that on its CPU, and it doesn't get you don't get the benefit of your graphics processor and all your graphics power. You could have the best graphics card in the world, and you'd still bog down if you're using this, because you're not getting any of that graphics power unless you're doing things in OpenGL. Okay, so that's why I don't use JIT Xfade. But I wanted to show you guys it. It is an easy way of just getting 2 channels of video really easily. Another thing you can't do is crossfade or mix between 5 different channels on this. You can only do 2 channels. Okay, let's just delete this. I don't even want it to be in your memory. Okay, but if you haven't deleted the slider already, keep it. If not, make a new one, set it to float output or undo and get your slider back. Just keep this slider so we don't have to make a new one.
Same property.
What? Yeah, exactly. Same properties, so make sure this has float output with a range of 1. All right, so what we're going to do now, we still have our 2 video planes, and we still have layering between them, right? But what we want to be able to do is be able to do a mix of them, and we can do that just by changing the alpha color of their video plane. So we can send it the message color, and so when you color a video plane in Max, it's kind of like having a projection screen of that color, right? I can send a color white, but the video plane is playing video that has mostly black in it. It's not going to be a white video plane. It's going to be whatever the video that is playing is, right? But the screen is white, so it's a neutral coloring. Nothing is colorized with it. Say you're using a projector and this screen that I'm projecting on was yellow. What would all the video on this screen look like? Anything here that was white would be yellow, right? Anything that was blue would be kind of blue-green, I guess, blue-yellowish. If you had, say, the screen was red and you tried to project blue on it, it would end up looking black, right? Because a red screen won't reflect blue light, right? So the color of your screen, you can use that color message of your video plane to actually colorize your video, and you can do some simple color correction that way, like pump up the red scale or subtract a little bit out of the blue to kind of tint it one color or another, simple color mixing. But you can also, and more importantly, tweak the alpha channel, right? Because all colors in OpenGL are 4 variables: the red channel, the green channel, the blue channel, and the alpha channel. So you can change that alpha channel, and that will influence how transparent the video plane is. So at color, we want this to be white, so it's not colorizing it. 1 period, 1 period, 1 period. And then the alpha is going to be variable, so $1. Okay, patch that in this. Let's set it so that I'm seeing whichever video I have on the left-hand side. The one that you have attached, that this slider is attached to. Set your layer order so that this one is on top, whichever one you have your slider attached to now. Okay? If I change this, nothing is happening, because we need to actually set this up to actually be able to do blending. And there's a message called blend enable 1. I think this is probably what you needed in order to get your transparent your PNG that has portions of transparent to actually be transparent. Blend enable 1. Now, if I change this value, you can see it becomes transparent. As I take that down to 0, it becomes transparent. Right? we are only making one of these video planes transparent. The other one is always opaque still, right? If I change the layer order of this and I do this, I'm not going to see that other layer because it's not on top, and we're only affecting the one layer's transparency. But there you go. You can do mixing this way. Usually, you want to do crossfading where one opacity of one layer is going down as the opacity of the other layer is going up, right? So then we just have to simply use that same, exclamation point minus object. Oh, and put a, 1 here, 1 period. Because you want to make sure that you're subtracting from 1 of a float. Go ahead and put a float object here so we can test this out. So now when I'm down at 0, that's 1, and when I'm up at 1, that's 0. So now it's the opposite. And now I can patch that into the same color message, the same type of color message, but patch that into the other video plane. Like this. So now as one goes up, the other goes down. And now it doesn't really matter which layer is on top because they're both becoming transparent. Wait, why not? It doesn't matter. Yes, it does. Why? Oh, because I didn't do blend enable on this other video plane. At blend enable 1. There we go. Now it shouldn't matter which video plane is on top. You should, when you have a 50-50 mix, you should be able to see either one. It is kind of changing which is brighter. All right. So cool. Now you have a opacity blend or an alpha blend here. Okay. What was I going to say about the 50% gray? So the reason why the background in jit.world is 50% gray is that when you are switching between one channel and another channel, if you had that being completely black in the background, let's go ahead and change this at erase color 000. And then go ahead and turn your toggle off and back on again. When I'm at 50%, things will get dimmer. The overall brightness of your image will drop. Even if if I'm crossfading from a bright video to a dark video, the overall brightness is going to drop anyway. But I'm talking about like if I was crossfading from two videos that have the same amount of brightness, when they're overlapped in the middle, the overall brightness will dip. You get the same thing in audio sometimes when you're doing crossfades. Right where you're at 50% of both channels doesn't equal the same amount of volume. What's happening here is because they're both transparent, it's seeing the black behind them, and so that black is added to the image, and so it dims the whole thing down. So pumping that to 50% makes it so that the overall brightness of the image should be unaffected by your erase color. That is, I believe, the real reason why the erase color is 50% gray. The other reason is that you can easily then tell whether your jit.world is on or off. So let's just reset this jit.world back to its default with its 50% gray erase color. You'll have to then toggle it off and back on again. All right, so now you notice we have these bars. We have like pillar bars on the side here. If I resize my window, maybe if I make the window just the right size, I can get them to go away. But it's actually kind of, the video is kind of the wrong aspect ratio. And if I go full screen, what? Did Max crash? Oh my gosh. Max crashed. Well, luckily in Max 7, it allows you to recover your edits. Let's see, did I lose anything? No. Okay. Can I go full screen? Play. Play. Why didn't that loop? My load bang didn't work. Oh, I think load bangs, when you're recovering, it doesn't execute load bangs because it figures maybe it was a load bang that made it crash, and if it's going to crash right when you open it, then you want to subvert that from happening, right? So yeah, that's why that didn't load. All right, so what was I saying? Oh, we were looking at the pillar bars and how to get rid of them. So right, I go full screen, I get these pillar bars. That's fine if I want to maintain the aspect ratio of my video and I make sure that the video plane is the right scale to represent the aspect ratio of the video. So like if it's 4:3, it would be a scale of something like at scale 1.31, you know, so it's 1.3 times wider than it is tall. 16:9 is like something even more, closer to 2. Or you can tell it to simply stretch it to fit the entire screen no matter what your screen size is, which is most of the time what you want. Especially when you know what size screen you're going to be presenting on and you've already made your content to be that same size. You just don't want to have to deal with scaling things. You can say at transform reset, and there's 2 different modes here. One is keeps the aspect ratio of the video, and 2 simply stretches it to completely fill the screen. We're going to have it at transform reset 2 on both of these. And so now they'll always fill the screen no matter what size this screen is. And if I make this screen a weird aspect ratio, it'll simply stretch the video to accommodate that weird aspect ratio. Okay, what else? Oh yeah, so let's look at a picture real quick. Go to the website, class website, and download. I put in week 6 this little boo !png file. Why don't you download that and drag? Once you have it downloaded, just drag it onto your patcher from. You can just drag it right from your Finder. Downloads, where is it? Boo. There it is. So drag that onto your patcher. It should be a PNG that has transparency. Now when you drag something in there, it's an FPIC object. FPIC won't output its texture or matrix until you send a bang to it. Let's just put a button up here, attach it to it. And we can have another video plane now that this is going to actually live on. And patch that into there. And to actually send that texture to the video plane, we're going to have to send that bang. Okay, so we don't see it because of why? Who wants to venture why we aren't seeing it?
It's put in default layer 0.
Yeah, it's a layer issue. So let's add our layering stuff, right? So at depth 0, depth enable 0, at layer, let's put this one on top, layer 3. Bang this again to make sure that the texture gets it. Why am I not seeing it? I should have seen it that time. Hold on, let me check my notes. Oh, maybe I have to have a blend enable or something. Oh, there it is. It's there. Why is the layering wrong? Maybe, yes, question. Maybe I did the wrong. I thought we had changed those layers to either being 1 or 0, but let's just make this like layer 5. There we go, okay. Yeah, all right, there, that fixed it. I just put it on a higher layer to make sure that it's always on the top. All right, so you're like, wait a second, this is supposed to have transparency. You can see the transparency here on my patcher. Why can't I see it on the window? Because it doesn't, it ignores transparency for blending purposes. So being able to see through one layer into a layer below it is called blending. Even if that blending is opaque except for where it's transparent, it's still blending. So you have to say at blend enable. At blend enable 1. As soon as I do that, and now I send this again, now it becomes transparent. And now I can have a sprite with transparency and move this thing around. I actually have a patch that I made that has a bunch of these boo sprites, and it uses physics objects to make the boo go around the screen. And depending on whether he's past the middle point, it triggers the animation for him to turn around and look at Mario. I was trying to do an installation where it would track your position as you walked by a wall, and wherever you were, it would make the ghosts actually react whether you're facing them or not. The hard part was which way you're facing. That was where I got stumped. I could do it. I know how to do it now I could use a Kinect sensor, but it would still be a pain to make it work right. But anyway, it's a good way of looking at images with transparency. So let's scale this down so it's not so big. You can say at scale 0.25, 0.25. And resend that again. And so now we have that alpha blended, and we can move that thing around if we want with position messages or rotation messages or whatever. So that's cool. What other things can we look at with layering? Well, anything that lives in the OpenGL world and actually creates something on your screen, you can put layering in that. So you can have a jit.gl.grid shape at layer 9 or 8, at what scale 0.25 at lighting enable 1. Whoops. Lighting enable 1. These are just the standard types of things at smooth shading 1. That's right. So now I have that, and it's layered on top of the ghost. Right. If I layered it behind the ghost by changing this from layer 9 to layer, what did I say? The ghost was on layer 5, so I put this on layer 4. Now the ghost is in front of him. Okay, so you can layer anything. Anytime you want to have a specific order of things to be viewed, right? Okay. What else? Let's look at some. All right. Oh, let's look at the other way of mixing. So, and some other ways of compositing. So go ahead and just put this full left or full right. I just noticed my things seem to be backwards because I would think that this video is over here, that as I move toward that would be the one that's up. Let's just swap those around. If yours is backwards too, just move this color thing over here and move this color message over here. And maybe if you want it to be less confusing, you can rearrange where these messages are so that things are where they're supposed to be. That way, now when I have the wiper toward the left, it's the left video that's up, and when I have the wiper toward the right, it's the right video that's up.
But why did that message happen that way?
Because it probably has to do with the layer, maybe? No, it's just geographic. I mean, it's going to be one or the other. I could have easily just moved these around too, and that would have. I could have grabbed these codes and this stuff and moved it over there, and that would have. It was just to make this line up with that. That's all. Okay. All right. So let's look at some other ways of compositing. So go ahead and make it full left, and we're just going to look at this dishes video, changing some parameters for that. So right now our blend, we have blend enabled, and we're using the default blend mode, which is alpha blend, which is why when we send it the color message with the changing the alpha channel, that it actually allows it to see the other layers. There's other blend modes. Go ahead and make an Attrui object by right-clicking on the inlet for this, and then find where it says blend. So you got blend enabled, but right above that is blend, alpha blend. Okay, so you can click on this. If you lock your patcher and click on the right-hand side, you can change this to other blend modes. So here's an additive blend, a multiply blend, exclusion. Actually, and what's going on is remember when we send this all the way to the left, we're turning down the opacity of the other video plane. Let's set that back up to 1. Let's just manually add a 1 over here, 1 period, and put that into that color message that goes to that video plane so that it puts it to its full opacity. Okay, so now we can try, now that this plane is at full and this one is also at full, we can play around with these other blend modes. So additive would add both of the colors together. So if pixel A is one value and pixel B on the other thing is a different value, it adds those values together, meaning it tends to get brighter as you're mixing, right? Things tend to get brighter, not dimmer. Multiply would be taking that pixel value and multiplying it by the second value. So as the second value is closer to 1, then it's the regular color. But if it's closer to some other value, it'll be shading it, tinting it toward that other value. Screen, I believe things that are white are less transparent, and the darker they are, the more transparent they are. Exclusion, I'm not sure. Color blend. So these, you've probably seen these kind of compositing modes in like Photoshop. And so if you've ever used Photoshop, you've probably seen these and are kind of familiar with what they are. But you can play around with them, and there's other types of compositing modes. And some of those compositing modes are also going to want you to change the color of your video plane, and some of them aren't. Depends on what you're doing, really. So, but let's look at add. Change it to blend to add. And there's another type of blending we can do in additive blending that's the same kind of as the Jitter Crossfade. And all you have to do there is instead of is having the blend mode set to add on both of these. So let's add an Attrui over here also for blend alpha blend, and change that blend to add. So now it's add on both planes. Okay. So when you're doing alpha blend, you can mix by changing the alpha channel. When you're doing additive blending, you can mix by making your video plane darker instead of more black, right? So it's instead of changing the 4th value, you're changing the first 3 values with additive blending. So let's try that. So just make another color message here. That's instead of $111.1, it's $1, $1, $1, 1 period. Patch that into your video plane. Duplicate it and patch it into the other video plane. Okay, and we can just let's do this. Let's have a switch here. G switch 2, I believe. G switch 2, and it's going to go away as soon as I click. It's going to turn into a graphic that looks like this. It's called G switch 2. G switch 2. This will take one inlet and send it to 2 different outlets. Patch the slider into the right inlet of this, the data inlet. Put a toggle next to this and patch that into the other inlet. Or you can click it, yeah. You're right, let's just click it. All right, so patch the first one into the original color message. Oh, I know what I'm doing wrong. This actually needs to be down here. Sorry, guys. All right, sorry. This wants to be on top. This needs to come in here, right, like that. All right, and then this will be the other message style. We'll need to do that again over here. Wait a second. Okay, there's a, I mean, that would work. We can do this without duplicating code. Sorry, guys. This, just go from here, actually. This goes in this one. That's funny. And that, this goes into this and this, sorry. And then this here goes into the other 2 messages. Oh, for crying out loud. I'm so, all right, what do you guys have? Where were we? Okay, I'm sorry. I got a little confused about which is the best way to do this. All these would have worked. It's just which is the easiest way for you guys to follow along with me. Not like that. All right, it's to simply use 2 of these things. So let's just do 2 of these things. Okay, so original message is this one. Second message is the one we came up with over here, right? Sorry. Let me put these so that they're not as confusingly ordered. Okay. I'll give you guys a second to catch up with me because I totally confused the hell out of you there. All right. So if we switch these to the other inlet now, we get our other type of blending, which is additive blending, which kind of looks the same. But I just wanted to show you what that's doing now is if you attach a message down here so that you're seeing what's coming out of this, it's changing everything. It's changing the first 3 values and leaving the last one as 1. Right, so that's another way you can add. And this is identical to the jit.xfade as far as the way it looks. But it's a lot better to do things this way than with jit.xfade. Okay, where are we at? 212. How are we doing? Is everybody with me still? Does anybody have an issue? This is a good place to take a break. Let's take a 5-minute break and come back at 2:20, 2:18. What? Oh, the hello, my baby. It's pretty funny. At least it doesn't sound like somebody's being assaulted like normally. You walk down the hall and I felt like somebody's getting assaulted. Does anybody want me to look at anything that they're working on during this break, or you guys can go walk and go to the bathroom or get a drink of water? What? Okay. Patch isn't working.
It's just not, yeah, it's not really working.
Okay. Okay, what isn't working?
It's not fading between the videos.
Okay, did you change your color mode on both of them? All right, so switch those switches.
What switches?
These switches. Remember, you got to click on them to get them to go to the other side. No, you click on the graphic. Yeah.
Oh.
Click on it. Lock your pattern. There you go. See how it goes to the other outlet?
Right.
Click the other one. There you go. Now use your thing. Now it should work. Try it.
Right, sorry.
Right. Okay, so it's not working. Why? Well, it looks like you got something patched into the wrong thing of a message, right? That's why it's coloring your message instead of coloring your video plane. So I don't know what that was for, but I'll get rid of that entire message. Okay, what happened was you patched into the wrong side of the message that you needed and ended up erasing it. Just duplicate this one here.
Oh, okay.
Duplicate. Bring that down. Get rid of that gray thing. That's the one that you patched into the wrong side. Now you're patching into the left inlet. And then patching that in there. There you go. It should work now. Try it. Okay, so then it's probably that you have the layer. Did you hit that one? Send that one into it. Yeah. Try it now. No. It's probably a layering order issue. And are both of these set on blend add? I think that's what's going on. Make it a true on your other one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you can duplicate that one. Command D is a lot easier than copy and pasting.
Oh, okay.
Patch that into. Yeah. And we change that to add. And now try it. What the heck? Open your Max window. Do you have any errors? Clear these. Clear all your errors. No, that's not what I meant. Open up the Max window again. Down the X in the corner. There you go. Move the wiper again and see if it makes a new error. It doesn't. Okay, so that's not what's going on. Wait. No, that shouldn't matter. Set up blend add. You change it. You have the color message. It should be the right one. Color $1 is right. You don't have that blend enable on that one.
This one?
Oh, yeah.
It should just be one.
Should see that blend enable. That's probably why. You have to unlock the password.
Yeah.
By clicking on a blank area of canvas. That's depth enable, not blend enable.
Oh, so I just need to be right.
Yeah. And it's a lot easier to click them out of the list than to type it because you're a lot more likely to make a typo if you try to type the whole thing out. So I always say click it out of the list. And that's working.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so we're back. No one really left. That's fine. Okay, so what were we doing? We were doing additive blending last, so we are changing the color of all 3 channels to do an additive blend between the 2. Now, let's go ahead and put that back to the way it was. Just click those back to where they should be. And change this blend back to alpha blend. Okay. Yes.
Can you explain a little bit more about that? What that object is doing? I understand that it's
G
routing,
switch.
Yeah, the G switch. It's routing one way to the other. But
Yeah.
what are we doing with the color messages itself?
So you're either using this message or this message, and this message works for the additive mixing. This message works for alpha blend mixing. Okay. Let's make a comment so you can tell. Use for additive. Use for alpha. Okay. We could go one step further and make a system that does this for us automatically. Let's use a text button. Go into the inspector for text button. We looked at this, I believe, last week, the text button. Change the format of this. There's a thing in here called mode button. Change that to toggle. Mode. Toggle.
How did you get that button?
Text button. Okay, now we want to change the text here, off text, and have that be what? Alpha. And on being what? Additive. We'll just say add. Actually, it'll be even, if we actually use the actual thing parameter, we can use the text of the button to change this. So let's just make this, I believe it's add with lowercase, and the other one is alpha blend, lowercase. So, and now you probably wanted the off color, they make it really, really dim, because normally you use this as an off and on, but we're using this as two different states. So let's just change the color. Text color off, change it to something brighter like yellow. And now when I click on this button, it's add or it's alpha blend, right? Okay. I have three outputs on this button. The first one is a 1 or a 0 based on whether I have add or alpha blend selected. The second one is going to be the actual word that's in the text button, right? So I can have a message that says blend $1 and attach that to the text that comes out of this button and patch that into both of the video planes. My patch is starting to get messy. I should probably start using sends and receives, but at this point, all right. And then we can also use this, the 1 or the 0, to change the state of these switches here, G switches. So now it's going to be like that, and see how it moves those for us? Now it's set up to do everything it needs to do for alpha blend, and then I click on this and it's set up for everything it needs to do for color blend. Does that make sense now? Okay, so all I did is I used the text here and patched that into a message that uses the word blend and then the wildcards, and then sent that to both of the video planes. That way, when I change to add, it changes the blend mode to add. And then I use the other outlet of the text button to actually switch the position of these G switch 2 objects, so that they go to the correct output so that the right message gets used. Cool? Cool. All right.
Mine isn't switching to the alpha blend.
Why not? What did you do? All right. All right. So
Here I have them going to the G switch.
that's right.
Okay, this one's going to the blend.
Okay, so you had alpha blend as 2 words, needs to be 1 word.
Thanks.
Yep. Okay. So let's look at how you could do some simple compositing. or simple color correction rather. And you can colorize the video planes to change the way they look. To colorize the video that's displayed on them. So we're going to make a POC, actually, not new object presentation, go away. New object, POC, color, and then 1 period, 1 period, 1 period, 1 period. Now, be really careful that you don't patch into the first inlet here, because we want that to always be the word color. But we can, on the other ones, we can use float number boxes and just add, let's just have 3 of them. We're not going to mess with the alpha channel. We're going to leave that alone. So patch these into the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, but not the last or the first inlets of this POC. Okay, and now patch that into whatever video plane you have right now that's currently on top. Okay, blend is still set. Make sure that your blend up here is set to alpha blend. All right. So now we can colorize this. Say I wanted to make this really red. I can subtract out of the other channels. Go ahead and put 1s in each one of your numbers here. 1, 1, and 1. Right? I could add red, I believe, by boosting the red. No, it won't let me boost channels. So it doesn't let you boost channels. It only lets you subtract channels. So if I wanted this to be more red, I could subtract out of the green and blue channel, and it should make it redder. Right? So that's like 0.6 and 0.6. Yeah, so you can tint it by subtracting out of the other channels. And that's basically, like I said, it's like having a red projection screen. If I tried to project on a red screen this video, that's what it would look like. So that's cool. You can play around with colors that way. And you can make your video, you can have your video do psychedelic colorized things by making the color of your video planes change over time, right? Let's see. There's other colorized objects. The jit.brcosa. brcosa. All one word. jit.brcosa. brcosa stands for brightness, contrast, saturation. Takes 2 letters of each one of those 3 different things. If you go into the help file, it shows you everything you need, but it's really just simple. Just add some atrues on this. Brightness and saturation, contrast. Go ahead and pass the video through your brcosa before it goes into the video plane. Saturation and contrast, there it is. So this video here, let's see, I can put my brcosa up here and patch through there before it goes to that video plane. And now I can adjust the brightness and make it dimmer, or I can make it less saturate. If you make the saturation 0, it makes it black and white. I don't know what negative saturation does. Ooh, look at that. It makes it like more toward the opposite colors, I guess. But 0 makes it black and white. Contrast, you can pump up the contrast. So it's a cool way of playing around with things. This also is an old matrix-based video object. There are better ways of doing the same thing in OpenGL. So this is a really easy object to use, but it's not the best object to use. we won't delete this one because I think you'll probably use it at some point. But for now, make sure you set everything back to 1 so that your video looks normal. Okay? So that's JIT BR COSA. Let's look at how you can add video effects and do shader-based video effects. And actually, our patch is starting to get really messy. Let's just save this and make a new one. So save this as video compositing. Maybe this video belongs in the compost. Compositing. And save wherever you like to save things. All right, and let's make a new one. Close this one. And we'll add a jit.world back in there. And a toggle. All right. Okay. My window. All right. So let's grab some video. Click right here. Any of these, doesn't matter. Let's use some of the nice looking ones. Let's see. Dust is good. Chickens is good. Sunflower. Those are all the higher resolution ones. Use chickens or sunflower. What? Oh, I guess my patcher was locked. Can't drag it on there if your patcher is locked. Chickens, where are you? Okay, so we got chickens. We can patch this. All right, so if we want to load a video effect, the way you can add effects in OpenGL is through the use of shaders. Has anybody not heard of shaders before? Probably. There's probably a few of you. So shaders are a way of sending programming language to your graphics card and that your graphics card can operate. Most of these are texture displacement programming instructions, how to warp or move texture data around or change its brightness and values for whatever reason. To warp an image to make an effect. You have to apply shaders to the video in order to have that effect be seen. There's different ways you can do that. You can apply a shader directly to the video plane by specifying the name of the shader. But then you have to know exactly what it is, and you have to put all the parameters in there that it's going to use. And I never do it that way. I always use this object called JitGL Slab because it is an easy object to load shaders, affect all the parameters of those, and be able to chain multiple different shaders together in an effects stack. So jitgl.slab, which is a way of processing texture data through shaders. So you patch the chickens into the slab, and then we can patch that into a video plane. We're only going to use this one video, so we can just use the built-in video plane in JIT World. I hit play. It should just be the chickens because we haven't loaded any shaders into this yet. Okay, so to load shaders into this, you have to have shaders. Now, Max comes with a whole bunch of different shaders already built in. To get those shaders, the easiest way to get them in there to know what their file names are and so forth is to instantiate a U-menu object, which looks a lot like the Atrui objects that you get by hovering over the inlet and right-clicking, right? this is the same kind of thing, but you have to go into the inspector for this now. If you want it to have shaders in it, you have to first click on here where it says auto populate. And then right below that where it says collection name, click on that and find shaders. Shaders, there it is. It's in the second column, about 2/3 of the way down. And make sure you have auto populate checked, or else nothing will end up in the U menu. Once you do that, it'll create a menu for you full of all the different shaders that Max has available. There's a huge list of different shaders. Now, each one of these, the file name in Max is kind of a hint about what the shader does. CC, I believe, are compositing, color correction rather, are color correction shaders. So CC BR COSA does the same thing as the actual BR COSA object that we just looked at. But it does it in OpenGL on your graphics processor instead of on your CPU, and it's better. CO are compositing shaders for compositing two different video streams. CF, I believe, is they all seem to be blurs and so forth. I can't remember what that stands for. There's GN, or generators that generate content without having any video file input into it. There's some material shaders, some operation shaders for actually, you can use shaders to do math. Your graphics card can sometimes do math faster than your CPU in certain circumstances. There are materials, we already said that. There are some operation ones, and TD is text displays. Most of the ones we're going to look at today are the text displays and the convolution ones. But text displays are texture displays shaders are the ones that kind of warp things and move things around and are kind of like a video effect, right? In the way that we understand them. So in order to load a shader in there, you have to give it, I believe, let me check my notes. You give it the message file and then the file name. So we can use file $1 here, and the middle outlet of this U menu is the menu item evaluated as a message, as a text. So if we patch that in there and we patch that into the GL slab, then whatever we choose out of this will be loaded into the slab. So for now, let's choose one that I know works right off the bat, and that is fisheye. Go ahead and choose TD fisheye over on the last column. Okay, and now you should see that it's loaded a fisheye lens shader onto this. The parameters, the default parameters that is loaded are not great because this looks crappy, but we can affect those parameters to make this look the way that we want it to look. In order to affect those parameters, we have to know what the parameters are, and every shader has its own parameters. Just like every object in Max has its own messages and so forth, right? But shaders in Max don't all get their own object. There's no td.fisheye object, right? You only have this slab object. So you have to send messages to the slab that gives you the parameters for the shader that you have currently loaded. And that is, message is called getParamList. GetParamList. You send that to the GL slab, and when you do that, the parameter list will come out of the dump outlet of the slab. So if I click on this, now it gives me the param list of everything for this shader. And it has two different parameters. It has sine curvature and lens radius. And the word here, param list, that's just for routing, right? So let's route it. Route param list. And so now if you attach this message to the outlet of that route param list object, and I click this get param list, now it gets rid of that word param list and gives me the two parameters. Now, if I want those parameters, if I want to be able to affect those parameters, I basically need to send the word param followed by the parameter that I want to affect, like sine curvature or a lens radius. Let's do lens radius. Lens radius. And then like $1, param lens radius $1 with a float object, and then patch that into the GL slab. And now I can change this parameter, right? Why is it not doing anything? Did I do something wrong? Oh, my file stopped playing, that's all. Just make sure your file's looping. There we go. Oh, yeah. And so now I can actually make this look the way a fisheye filter should look by changing this lens radius something so that it's not all weirdly warped and stretched on the corners. Right? So that's cool, but what if I want to change my shader and be able, so see how I can change that? And I could use a line object or anything really to create a number stream that changes this over time, and that could be like an effect, like a pulse effect. Like, remember in the Matrix where Neo goes and like the whole world like warps around him? It's this kind of video effect. But I had to build this message by hand, right? I had to put the word param lens radius. I can use this route param list to create a system for automatically generating the messages I need to work with any shader, no matter what it is. And the way you would do that is to, coming out of this route param list, have this get unpacked. And now you have to tell how many different things you want to unpack. In this case, I only had 2 parameters, but some shaders have more. So now we'll just have to decide how many different things we want to deal with. I'd say most shaders aren't going to have more than 8 parameters. So let's unpack 8 different symbols. These are all symbols, not numbers. So unpack symbol, 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 till you have 8 symbols. What is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So coming out of this route param list, going into this unpack with a bunch of symbols. And we can say, and so now if we did this, the first one that comes out should be the first parameter. Signature curvature, right? Sine curvature. Whoops, what did I do? There it is. We're starting to run out of time, so I got to move a little bit faster. So if we want to create a system that is dynamically responds to new things that comes in, we're going to have to use the prepends. Remember prepend? Prepend, you normally would give it a what you're prepending. You give it an argument like prepend set or something. You can also have a prepend that doesn't have an argument, and if you send the word set plus whatever, it will set that prepend's argument as whatever you have. So we need to prepend we have a float value, right, up here, and then we have that going to the word param plus lens radius before that float value. So we need to prepend the word that comes out of the get param list before this float value. And we can do that by using this prepend set. So as the symbol comes out, it first adds the word set before it. And then sends that to this other prepend, right? So if I click this, it says set sine curvature. I send that to this other prepend, and now it will prepend the word sine curvature behind whatever comes out of it. So if I'm now coming out of this prepend, if I change this float, now it's sine curvature plus the float value that we need. And now we just need the word param, right? We have most of it here. We just need the word param. So we just need one more prepend, and that's we can prepend param. So we have 3 different prepend objects. All right. Don't need that anymore. Coming out of this, go back up to the slab. Okay, so that's the first parameter. We can just copy this now 8 times. We can patch everything into this last prepend param. We only need one of those. But this stuff here, everything else, the prepend set, the float box, and the prepend, duplicate that 8 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Patch each one of these unpacks into that. And then patch each of the prepends into this prepend param. And now the only thing we're missing is actually something to show what the parameter is, because right now we don't have anything that's going to display it, so we won't know what we're looking at. We can use comments, and we can already use the what's coming out of prepend set and send that to a comment, and that will actually set that text to show up on the comment. So just have a comment, make it a little bit smaller so it's not so huge, and then duplicate that 8 times. You can put it underneath or wherever that makes sense. You want to have it close to the number box so that you know what that number box is actually affecting. And then patch coming out of the prepend set here. Patch that into that comment box. And then go ahead and click your get param list, and then it should populate all of those comment boxes with the parameters for that shader that you have loaded. So if I click on get param list, now it fills in those with lens radius and sine curvature. What it won't do is erase something that was there before. So we could clear those out by sending the word set to all of these boxes, but we're running out of time, so I kind of just want to skip that step for now. Yeah, that's what I did before. So before, what I did is I'll just do it on 1 or 2 because I don't have time to fill in everything. But all I did was coming out of get this on this. When you click get param list, I had a trigger set, and then patch that into each one of these boxes. Each one of these, sorry, not boxes, in each one of these comments. That way, when you do that, it clears out what was there and then replaces it by what's coming. All right, so if I load a different shader now, like, let's see, Kaleido, and I click on Get Param List, now you can see it updates all of these with what the new parameters are called. And go ahead and, if you have Kaleido loaded, click on Divisions over here. It's like the 4th parameter, and change that to some even number usually looks best. and then look at the video, and now it's doing that kaleidoscope effect. All right, so that's it for time. Your homework is to play around with this, and your homework is to make a creative video sequence that uses at least 2 Jitter GL video plane objects and mixes them with color messages. Have at least 1 GL slab object and pass video through it, and then animate one of the parameters of the slab somehow. You can use a line object, like a line 0. So let me just show you that. It'll only take a minute, which is exactly how much time we have left. So say I wanted to animate, going back to fisheye and get param list. So you don't have to use this complicated system in your homework. This was just to show you, and I'm sure you'll want to use this at some point to be able to get to and affect all your parameters. This is a helpful code to have. But for the homework, all you really need is this type of message where you're directly affecting one parameter that you already know what the name of that parameter is. In this case, this was lens radius, right? So when we change lens radius, so I could have like a line object. So say this looks cool when it's going between, looks like 3 and 5 or so, right? So I could have a line 3 period, and then I could have this be a message that goes 3 period, comma 5 period in 5 seconds, 5,000 milliseconds. Patch that in here, and now, right, I have that effect animating over 5 seconds, right? And maybe I have another message that goes back and forth. So I have another message that goes 5, 3, 5,000. And maybe I'm using a trigger bang bang and a G switch 2, and the first bang changes the output, and the second bang goes to the outlet, and now these should hop back and forth. Yeah, and so now it's breathing, and if I make this shorter, it'll be quicker. So I'll make this 2,000. Right, so now it's animating that effect, right? So use a slab, do some compositing. You don't have, like, if you can't figure out try to do something really interesting, but if you just want to check the boxes, that's fine too. But I want to see you do some mixing, and I want to see you have a shader that you're animating a parameter on. Okay? That's it, guys. Yeah.